resilience for peace, stability, food, and water security innovation. To strengthen local business models for small and medium enterprises investing in climate adaptation in conflict-prone areas. We understand the Adaptation Investment Marketplace, AIM, will help the Resilience for Peace initiative be successful in catalyzing much-needed investment for local adaptation. Thank you again.
The Global Resilience Partnership is an inclusive and diverse partnership of organizations joining forces towards a world where vulnerable people and places are able to thrive in the face of shocks, uncertainty, and change. We believe that innovation for adaptation at the local level is critical to resilience building. A key principle of resilience is putting people and communities, especially women and marginalized groups, at the center of decisions and empowering them to help develop equitable and sustainable solutions. GRP fully supports the Adaptation Innovation Marketplace through our deep experience working directly with communities, civil society, and national governments to help them ensure their long-term capacities and institutions are built for transformative change. Innovation building requires support to take risks. GRP brings extensive experience supporting innovations that have benefited over 1,100 organizations and 7 million people to become more resilient. We look forward to working with UNDP and all the partners in the Adaptation Innovation Marketplace to ensure we build a resilient future for all.
Hello, my name is Tom Mitchell from Climate Kick. Climate Kick's delighted to be partnering with UNDP on delivering the Adaptation Innovation Marketplace. Look, for 10 years, Climate Kick has been developing the type of ecosystems that we need at a local level to help give birth to the type of adaptation innovation that we need to tackle the mounting challenges that we face from the impacts of climate change. What this involves is supporting business creation, helping young businesses reach the scale that they need to really make a difference. And we know that there is a huge opportunity in the adaptation economy now to meet the needs, meet those local needs, but at the same time, create value, create jobs, create growth for those businesses, and create the type of entrepreneurial ecosystem that we're going to need to be able to capture the benefits of the new economy. And the Adaptation Marketplace gives us an opportunity to do that. Climate Kick looks forward very much to building the connections between the locally led business creation efforts that we have and the ways in which investors and the marketplace can help bring those solutions to scale. Thank you.
World Resources Institute is excited to support UNDP's Adaptation Innovation Marketplace. To spur innovation, we need to shift power and resources to local actors so they can identify and implement solutions that work for their communities. This is even more important now in the context of the multiple crises that vulnerable populations face. To support the marketplace, WRI will continue to share knowledge and increase understanding of locally led adaptation and innovation in the lead up to COP26 and beyond.
Thank you to all our partners for sharing these reflections. We look forward to engaging with innovators and building new partnerships in making AIM a collective success for impact on the ground. Thank you for joining us.
Hello everyone, bonjour à tous. Right now, we're all dealing with the health and economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Job one is to do whatever it takes for as long as it takes to protect people and economies from this virus. But as we work to keep people safe today, we must also plan for the recovery of tomorrow. And that must include an ambitious plan to take strong action to fight and build resilience against climate change. Because climate change is a crisis affecting our health, our economic prosperity, and our planet. Les jeunes le comprennent mieux que quiconque. Ils savent que nous devons protéger les espèces végétales et animales, rétablir l'équilibre de la nature et préserver notre planète pour les générations futures. Et ils comptent sur nous pour agir maintenant pour leur avenir. That's why Canada has outlined a strong climate plan that will adapt to the impacts of climate change, create jobs, and build a cleaner and more competitive country for everyone. We're investing in infrastructure to protect Canadians from climate-related disasters. We're addressing the effects of climate change on everyone's health. We're supporting communities that are most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. We're working with Indigenous partners to restore and protect our lands and our waters, and we will use nature-based solutions to fight this crisis too. It's why we're planting 2 billion trees in Canada. And together with Mexico, we're leading the Global Commission's Nature-Based Solutions Action Track to find more ways to use the power of nature to protect it. And we're continuing to work with international partners to build a more sustainable world, because to effectively fight climate change at home, we must fight it everywhere. But to continue to take on this challenge, we need the voices of young people. That's why Canada supported the Young Leaders Program for the Global Commission, and why we welcome the launch of a new Young Leadership Program to bring together the next generation of leaders to help tackle climate change. C'est grâce à vos idées et à votre détermination que nous pourrons trouver de nouvelles solutions à cette crise et bâtir un monde plus résilient. So thank you to everyone for joining us in this fight, and thank you to the young people for stepping up and getting involved. Together, we will build a cleaner, safer, and more competitive world. Thank you. Merci.
I know we're all still wrestling with the huge challenges of COVID-19, but we can't lose sight of the vital importance of our fight against climate change. The past few weeks have been hugely significant in that fight, and more so perhaps than any weeks since the Paris Agreement was reached 5 years ago. First at December's UK-hosted Climate Ambition Summit, and then at President Macron's One Planet Summit, we've seen nations coming together to set a clear path to the greener, cleaner, and more sustainable future we all want for our children. But stopping climate change 10, 20, or however many years from now can't and must not be the limit of our ambition. Because when we look to Bangladesh and see more powerful and more frequent storms and cyclones, when we look to California, Australia, and see soaring temperatures and raging wildfires, when we look to the island nations of the Pacific and see whole communities submerged by rising seas, we cannot deny that dramatic climate change is already happening, already devastating lives and economies. And even if by some miracle of science we were able to flick a switch tonight and wake up tomorrow in a net zero world, the damage already done is such that it would take time for the effects to slow, to stop, and to go into reverse. And that means we must adapt to our changing climate, and we must do so now, because people are already suffering. And because prevention is not only better than cure, it's cheaper too. If we fail to act in 2021, then by 2030, the annual bill for adaptation in developing countries alone will have reached as high as $300 billion. So I fully support the Secretary General of the UN, Antonio Guterres' call to increase the amount of climate finance dedicated to adaptation. I'll be making the need for a more resilient recovery a priority of the UK's G7 presidency this year. And to make sure we get not just warm words, but real change, I'm today launching an all-new Adaptation Action Coalition, which is a joint effort between the UK, Bangladesh, Egypt, Malawi, the Netherlands, St. Lucia, and the United Nations. This coalition will draw on the expertise of businesses, scientists, civil society, and more, working with the Race to Resilience and the UN High-Level Climate Champions team to build on 2019's call for action on adaptation and setting the agenda ahead of COP26 later this year. If climate change were an infectious disease, we would not only seek to deal with the underlying cause by developing a vaccine, in this case, net zero, we would also find every way we could to treat and manage the symptoms. So, let 2021 be the year that we fight back, not just against climate change, but the effects of climate change that are already. And let's work to adapt
We are still speeding in the wrong direction.
to save
The world
lives
has also been
and livelihoods.
more than 2
Monsieur le secrétaire général des Nations Unies, Monsieur le Premier ministre des Pays-Bas, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, Mesdames et Messieurs, merci d'abord d'organiser cette réunion. Malheureusement, une fois encore, nous sommes sanitaires par accouchement épidémique. Mais le sujet est d'importance et il tenait à être parlé. L'adaptation et la résilience sont en effet des mots qui ont résonné avec force et gravité. Et la crise de la Covid-19, nous sommes en train de vivre ici. Encore, la planète tout entière a montré plus que jamais à quel point il est crucial de protéger les populations face aux chocs et leur permettre de s'en relever. Le changement climatique est l'un de ces chocs qui nous concernent tous, dont les impacts se manifestent et s'intensifient partout. Mais nous le savons aussi, son impact varie considérablement selon notre situation sur notre planète. Il frappe très durement les populations les plus vulnérables. Pensons aux habitants des petits États insulaires du Pacifique, par exemple, ou de ces territoires de montagne qui assistent à la transformation de leur environnement et voient leur quotidien bouleversé. Pensons à ces villageoises et villageois du Sahel dont les puits s'assèchent une année ou dont les champs sont inondés l'année suivante. Pensons à cette révolution que nous avons vue durant ces dernières années dans toute la région du lac Tchad, qui a bouleversé des écosystèmes, qui a créé de la pauvreté, des famines et qui a engendré des migrations profondes et des zones de guerre. À l'heure où je vous parle, plus de 2 milliards de personnes sont affectées dans leur quotidien par le stress hydrique. 40% des habitants de la planète pourraient en souffrir dans les 10 années qui viennent. Le concept de déplacé climatique n'est plus théorique. Des femmes et des hommes en situation précaire du fait du sous-développement sont en effet aujourd'hui contraints à l'exil. Et ce, maintenant dans presque toutes les régions. C'est pourquoi il nous faut, dans l'esprit de l'accord de Paris, faire preuve d'ambition et de solidarité. Il en va de notre responsabilité à tous et de notre responsabilité à chacun. Il est aujourd'hui bien compris qu'il est essentiel de réduire les émissions de gaz à effet de serre pour limiter le réchauffement climatique. Nous y sommes engagés, la bataille n'est pas finie, loin de là. Mais nous en connaissons les objectifs, la juste mesure, les engagements, les financements et nos avances. Mais il est tout aussi important d'accélérer la mise en œuvre d'actions d'adaptation sur le terrain afin de réduire la vulnérabilité. La France s'emploie sur ce territoire depuis 2006 à travers un plan national d'adaptation. J'ai renouvelé tout le temps. Une large pour l'objectif est d'accélérer et d'étendre l'adaptation en cohérence avec les objectifs de long terme. Les collectivités locales qui jouent un rôle de premier plan en mettant en œuvre des plans à l'échelle des territoires. Des solutions fondées sur la nature, adaptées à chaque contexte local, des mesures spécifiques sont également venues compléter ce dispositif pour nos territoires d'outre-mer et ont été partagées avec ceux qui en ont besoin. Par exemple, l'initiative Kiwa pour l'adaptation et pour la protection de la biodiversité dans le Pacifique, lancée par la France lors du premier One Planet Summit le 12 décembre 2017, associe dans un même programme une mise en œuvre de solutions pour la résilience des territoires d'outre-mer et des petits États insulaires en développement. Nous sommes heureux d'y travailler aujourd'hui avec l'Union européenne, l'Australie, la Nouvelle-Zélande et le Canada. C'est un projet pour l'environnement, mais aussi un projet contre les inégalités, les vulnérabilités sociales. Au niveau international, la France est comme je me suis engagé lors du sommet, la France rehaussera le niveau de climat à plus de 6 milliards d'euros par an. Elle consacrera un tiers. La France joue par ailleurs son rôle pour aider à la mobilisation au niveau mondial des financements publics et privés sur le sujet de l'adaptation. Lors du sommet Finances en commun, nous avons lancé une coalition de 450 banques publiques de développement qui se sont engagées pour la première fois à intégrer l'adaptation et la résilience dans leurs stratégies et opérations. Elles se sont également engagées à renforcer l'action pour financer l'élaboration et la mise en œuvre de plans nationaux d'adaptation. Cette coalition rendra compte de cette progrès lors du prochain sommet. C'est essentiel car elles ont un rôle d'exemplarité pour inciter le secteur. Au nord comme au sud, il nous faut repenser les infrastructures, les routes, les ports, à l'aune de l'élévation du niveau de la mer, des événements climatiques violents, de la hausse des températures moyennes et des transformations. Le One Planet Summit consacré à la biodiversité que nous avons organisé le 11 janvier dernier, en partenariat avec les Nations Unies et la Mondiale, s'inscrit aussi dans cette logique. Il a permis de lancer plusieurs initiatives fortes qui contribuent à la Par exemple, l'accélérateur de la Grande Muraille verte Sahel, qui doit renforcer la résistance.
Welcome to South Asian Environment Dialogue. It's a program, as you all know, which discusses about the environment and climate change issues across South Asia. But as I said before, that why should only we consider South Asia? South Asia is only part of this huge global world. So we'll be talking all about the issues, but South Asia is our focus. And today we'll be discussing an issue which is as important as anything we have discussed over the last 4 or 5 months. That is adaptation. We call it adaptation matters. Before going into the specific topics, let me share with you that this program is brought on by the Climate Channel, the Canadian Television Channel, along with the Plurals, the Indian media platform, and notvbangla, YouTube channel from Bangladesh. And you know that in recent times, there have been 2 major adaptation-related conferences. First one is the Climate Summit, Climate Adaptation Summit 2021, and another is the Global Gobeshona Conference, which I am told has gone on 7 days, 24 hours in a day. It's unprecedented. I have never heard a conference like this. I'm really keen to hear the details of it. But before doing that, my job is to introduce the very esteemed panel that I have with me.
Throughout the economy.
Let me start with Professor Saleemul Huq, and he needs no introduction in the field of climate change and environment, not only in South Asia but globally. But still, I need to formally introduce him. He leads International Center for Climate Change and Development, ICCCAD, and he's also the advisor of so many kind of organization and platforms in development countries, a key person, a scientist participating in the global negotiation. And Dr. Huq, such a pleasure to have you again in this program.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jayanta. Nice to be here.
A group of financial institutions from across banking, investment, and
today also have a fascinating
physical
young
risk assessment.
Climate
Adaptation
experts.
is therefore essential.
It's so good to see the young faces working and talking about climate change. Let me introduce one by one. All of them are from ICCCAD.
And not only by
Ms. Mahmuda Akter, Research Officer. Mahmuda, welcome to the show.
Next to risks, climate change and climate adaptation implies
we have
opportunity.
Tasfia Tasnim, Senior Research Associate.
To discuss with companies how they can be more resilient for climate change.
We have Jennifer Khadim,
for instance, in farming,
Youth Program Coordinator.
Different crops.
Hello, this is Jennifer. Great to be here.
Different use of raw materials can actually
we have Sarah Farheen,
be part of the response, but
Program
also
Assistant.
Imply financial
Thank you for having us. Good
economic
afternoon.
opportunities.
Absolutely.
I'm encouraged by the current trends towards green finance globally, but there needs to be more focus on preparing for climate shocks, as well as reducing emissions.
The various initiatives in the field of climate adaptation that I spoke about require openness about where we stand as a bank, what has and has not been
looking forward to talk to all of you. Shahrin Mannan, Senior Research Officer.
Ourselves, and we also encourage other financial institutions to pay more attention to climate
fascinating team.
And to report on it, as well as
Professor Huq, I'm really keen to hear about the
adaptation together.
The race to resilience
conference,
has
but before
begun,
that,
We need to point it towards the trillions
this
of
Climate
finance.
Adaptation
This
Summit
is a coalition,
2021 has
a group
been
of financial leaders committed to fully managing climate risks
so
and investing
you are the
in
best
our
person
resilient
that
future.
how important this particular program, and I'm told that more than 50 kind of country leaders and others have joined, and there have been various kind of suggestion, recommendation, and commitments. So if you just kind of talk us through a bit about this climate summit.
Sure. Thank you very much, Jayanta. So let me start with a little bit of background to the summit. It actually started 2 years ago when a commission, a global commission on adaptation was set up, headed by Mr. Ban Ki-moon, the former Secretary General of the UN, also Mr. Bill Gates and Ms. Kristalina Georgieva, who is now the head of the IMF, and a number of commissioners from around the world, including from our part of the world. We had Sheila Patel from India and Dr. Musa, the head of BRAC in Bangladesh. And this commission, after a year, produced a major flagship report on adaptation that had a number of different adaptation tracks, and this was produced at the Climate Action Summit in New York in September 2019. Under the they had
Bangladesh has emerged as a global leader on
and at that summit, they declared a year of action which would culminate in a adaptation summit, which would be hosted by the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, who was also at that meeting. So was our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. And that originally the plan was for that summit to be a real summit with people, heads of government coming to Amsterdam in October last year. But then because of the pandemic, the date got shifted. It went to 25th January, and it became a virtual summit. And in the last few days, it was held as a virtual summit, again hosted by the Prime Minister of Netherlands. Mr. Ban Ki-moon was there virtually. John Kerry from the United States spoke. It's the first international conference for him. Our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina spoke again virtually. And they had, as you said, more than 50 heads of government and ministers from many different countries all speak, as well as heads of private sector companies, international agencies, UN agencies. And the way it was run, being a virtual event, they started with the high-level event hosted by the Dutch Prime Minister, and then they went around the world in 2-hour segments. They called them anchor events, which were on different topics that I mentioned earlier: agriculture, cities, urban, infrastructure, finance. One of those anchor events was hosted by Bangladesh. It was on locally led adaptation. And that is the topic which we specialize in. And it's about how to help the most vulnerable communities to adapt to the impacts of climate change, which is also the topic that we had in the Gobeshona conference, which took place prior to that. So the Adaptation Summit was a major success. Organizations and leaders from all over the world participated over 24 hours in these different events that took place. And now we are going forward with a 10-year action plan over the next 10 years of actually implementing all the different activities and promises that we came up with. All of them had an action plan associated with them. In the case of the locally led adaptation track, which we were part of, it is about applying the principles of locally led adaptation, which means enabling the poor and vulnerable communities who are being affected to take a lead in deciding what is needed. At the moment, other people, governments and international agencies decide on their behalf what they need without consulting them. And you have this experience working at the grassroots in Sundarban as well. So we want to reverse that procedure or paradigm, which is a very top-down one, with a more bottom-up approach. We need to listen to them. We need to respect them. We need to take their views into account because they know their problems better than we, the outsiders, know it. And we need to be helping them rather than telling them what to do. So that is the outcome that we are hoping to achieve. We got everybody to sign up to it in principle. That's the good news. Now we need them to do it. Let us see if they can do that, or we can make them do that.
Before going to the Gobeshona conference part, just a quick supplementary question: that this switchover in US how it kind of affected the moods in the climate negotiation? Because I understand this is the first major global conference post-Trump era. So you have noticed any change of mood, any kind of directional change in here?
Absolutely. I must say I'm very, very pleasantly surprised by the change in the current administration compared to the previous one. We knew that was going to happen. But on the other hand, since they came into power, and we're only talking a matter of a few days, the new administration has taken climate change so much more seriously that they're actually amazing everybody by how proactive they are being. Yesterday, the Biden administration had a climate day where they had, I think, 30 different new initiatives that the United States is taking, including international ones led by John Kerry, who is the new climate envoy of President Biden. So they are definitely moving out of the block very fast, positive direction, good energy, very welcome for the rest of the world. Now they have to deliver.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So that bit we need to take a little bit of skepticism. Let them show us, but they're talking the good talk. That's good.
Absolutely,
let us see if they walk it.
Whether they walk it up, because even before Trump, everything was not hunky-dory when it actually came to deliver. There were a lot of talks, but not deliver. Let us now go to yes.
Also, if I can just add one other thing, the issue right now is that, you know, they are coming back. Obama was okay. We had Paris under Obama, and then we had Trump for 4 years, and now we have Biden coming in. These 4 years have not been good years. They have taken us back. So the US is not joining at a point where they left. They're joining at a point where we are further behind. And so they need to make up. They have a lot of ground to make up before we accept them as an equal with us.
Absolutely,
the world has moved on. They have not moved with us. So, you know, there's a lot of catching up to do from the US, which we hope they'll do. I expect they will do. But they need to realize there is no, you know, there's no easy win here. They cannot assert leadership without showing genuine leadership.
Absolutely. And the ball is in their court, no doubt about that. Let me go to the Global Gobeshona Conference. Just take us through that, because I'm told, again, I'm repeating it, that continuous 24 hours for 7 days. Is it a fact?
It's a fact. Let me give you a little history first, and then I'll describe it, and I'll ask my colleagues to share with you their experiences of doing it. So the history is that 7 years ago, we started this initiative in Bangladesh called Gobeshona, which is Bangla for research. And it's an initiative bringing together the research community, universities, research institutes, government, non-government, NGOs, and others to share information on climate change, particularly research and knowledge on climate change. And the platform now has more than 50 organizations, many universities and others. And among the many things that we do, every January, we used to hold a big conference. So until last year, it was held in Dhaka at my university, the Independent University Bangladesh. We would get 300, 400, sometimes 450 people from all over Bangladesh, and also quite a lot of international participants, including from India and West Bengal. But they had to come to Dhaka to participate. And it was held over 4 days at our university. So this year, we decided to go online and virtual because of the COVID restrictions. But since we were going online, we decided to try to see whether we can go from a local conference to a global conference. And we reached out to friends around the world, asking them to see whether they wanted to join us. And we got a huge, overwhelming response. More than 90 sessions were offered around the world. So in the end, we organized it 7 days long, 24 hours a day, with 3 8-hour segments. The first 8 hours for Asia Pacific region, where we started it. Then we handed over to friends in Africa and Europe, because they are the same time zones. So another 8 hours for the Africa-Europe time zones. And then the final third 8 hours were for the Americas time zone, North America, Central America, South America, and many of the South Americans did their sessions in Spanish as well. And then they came back to Asia, and then we did another 8 hours and another 8 hours and another 24 hours. And my colleagues who are on this panel organized this whole event. And I invited them to join us to tell the story of how we did it and how this was organized.
I'm going to them, but before that, just sorry to interrupt you. How many presentations or how many lectures are being kind of part of it?
Well, we had 90 different sessions. And within those, we had, some of them were 3-hour-long sessions with lots of presentations. Some of them were short with one keynote presentation. We had some very high-level speakers that I interviewed, and they gave a presentation. So it was a variety of different kinds of sessions from all over the world. Just to give you a flavor, we had Ibaraki University in Japan talking about locally led adaptation in Japan. We had Griffith University in Australia talking about what they're doing. We had the University of Sussex doing a very interesting project in the Sundarbans, which my colleagues can talk about as well. And then we had North America. I had a very good conversation with the resilience officer of Providence City in Rhode Island in the United States about locally led adaptation. So the topic is local adaptation, but taking place in different parts of the world. So we brought together people who are working on adaptation in their own location, but then sharing lessons across the globe. And that worked very, very well, surprisingly well. I didn't expect it to work so well. We connected local adapters around the world.
I'm sure that some detailed reports is going to be coming out, and we all
soon.
will be looking forward to, because I think it can actually play a major role while working on the evidences leading to the Glasgow, especially in the adaptation sector. I think it's absolutely fascinating. Let me now go over to your colleagues and take a input from them. First, maybe Sarah Farheen Khan. I mean, Sarah, you were the one who played a key role in overall organization, if I'm not wrong. Just share your experience with us, that how it is, because I think it's also included the high-level one. So what's your experience on that?
Thank you. So as Dr. Huq already mentioned, this year the annual conference was held from the 18th to 24th of January. That is a whole long week, 24/7 conference focusing on locally led adaptation actions across different geographical regions like Asia, Africa, Europe, Australia, Northern America, and several other regions. So being a part of the Gobeshona Global Conference organizing team, my role was like a liaison officer. I had to build working relationships between organizations or people and partner with ICCCAD to take part in the conference. Furthermore, we had to moderate the conference in US, UK, Japan time, sitting here in Bangladesh. So the purpose of the conference.
How many hours you have slept within that week?
In 7 days, possibly 10 hours in total.
I thought that you haven't slept at all. The kind of workload you were talking about. But let us know from you that high-level conference, as Professor Huq was also mentioning, how it was, who were the key persons out there?
Right. So speaking of outcomes, I believe all these sessions we had around the week had a purpose, and the session hosts did absolute justice to the full time they were given, whether that be having interactive discussions in breakout rooms in Zoom calls, or sharing their research or organizational works. So the keynote sessions or the high-level sessions we had at the conference, for example, the Right Honourable Miss Anne-Marie, who is the Member of Parliament at the UK, she provided a very important guideline in simple words. That is, partners need to identify practical actions. States need to create and finalize their national adaptation plans. And those already completed need to provide climate communication.
Okay.
This will enable financial.
Okay, so this is broadly the kind of structure we followed. Well, I'll come back to you.
Sure.
But let me go to Shahrin Mannan. Shahrin, I think I'm told that this particular conference, there was a part called Small Climate Grants, if I'm not wrong, and you were the person who kind of handled and worked on that. That sounds very interesting. Tell us briefly about what exactly it was and how it goes to help the overall adaptation strategy?
Thank you, Mr. Basu. So yes, as Dr. Huq said, from this year, we have gone global, entirely global for the Gobeshona conference. So one of the ideas behind introducing the small grants program was that we always had a big number of people, a community of practice attending these conferences in regular intervals, and they have been meeting and having different ideas to, collaborate with like-minded peoples and work together, but they never really got the chance to work on it after going back to their workplaces. So this grant was funded by the Climate Justice Resilience Fund, and we were asked to sort of, facilitate the group formation and the networking among different people coming from different countries around the world. So we started off with a networking session pre-Gobeshona conference, where we had a number of people joining from different countries, from Uganda, from Tanzania, from Philippines, from Bangladesh, Fiji, and whatnot. So they attended the networking session and they formed groups, small groups, with maximum number of 3 members. And then over the period of this Gobeshona conference, they solicited ideas and come up with a 1-pager concept note. And then over a period of time, there was a selection board which had top 10 proposals, and then we had a very quick but very efficient online voting system where within, I think, 24 hours, I think less than 24 hours, we received, I think, 1,400 to 1,600 votes for these concept notes, and we received top 5 winning teams. And
so just hold. So you mean to say that the entries being selected on basis of the voting?
Yes.
Exactly. Yes. So
we crowdsourced the most popular ones.
Absolutely. So
the idea behind it was to make it as participatory and the fair selection as possible. So we had a HOVA platform, virtual platform, where we introduced the voting system, and we had, I think, 1,500 votes within 24 hours. And
how many you selected in the day? 10.
Top 5. We have selected top 5, and we'll again, have the same process in the next conference as well. In 2022.
And how much they being funded?
So each group will receive USD 5,000. This is a small grant, basically, to facilitate the networking.
And they have to work for how long a period to work on this?
1 year. 1 year. They have to come back again in the next Gobeshona with regular intervals in the community-based adaptation conference. And then during the COP26, we also plan to bring them and have parallel discussions during the Development and Climate Day.
That's absolutely fantastic. And I'll be coming back to you, but before that, let me go to Tasfia. Tasfia, I think you perhaps have worked with the nature-based solution part, and now globally, nature-based solution is something which is a new jargon, but coming up very, very strongly and very quickly. So, what's your experience on that, and how you when you handled it? What's the kind of feedback you got, Tasfia?
Yes, thank you so much, Jayanta, for having us here and let me share my experience on the nature-based solutions. You have rightly mentioned on the nature-based solutions that we have been practicing these nature-based solutions for decades. Like the philosophy, it's not new. The term is only new. So what we are doing here, like in the locally led adaptation themed Gobeshona Global Conference, we have quite a number of sessions. I think there are 4 to 5 sessions on nature-based solutions. And I have been leading all the nature-based solution sessions in the conference. And we have received huge number of responses in every session. And I think that one of the session was one of the highest, it has the highest number of audience. And I think over 220 people only attended in one session. So that's a huge participation in an online conference, we are seeing. So in the nature-based solution sessions, I would like to share a few key messages that we have received from the audience. Is that local communities need to be like very integral part of during NBS implementation, and for this we need to grow the NBS community, and that's where ICCCAD is playing a leading role. We are actually leading the development of nature-based solutions Bangladesh portal. And there we are mainly trying to gather the evidence, both from case studies from local level and also from the scientific communities like peer-reviewed journals and papers. And there actually we are trying to gather all this evidence and try to measure the effectiveness of nature-based solutions. Okay. And for this, we are actually trying to grow our community. So what we are calling this is Nature-Based Solutions Bangladesh Network. We have a portal, we have clause and terms for joining the network. We welcome people from all over the globe to join our network, the NBS Bangladesh Network. Though the term is Bangladesh because it's a Bangladesh-led initiative, but we are not limiting people only from Bangladesh.
No, when you call Paris Agreement, because it happened in Paris, not necessarily Paris has done it, but
That's
it
right.
happens in Paris.
So yes, we are actually welcoming people to join the NBS Bangladesh network, and we are welcoming any case studies to be put in Bangladesh or in South Asia. Probably we will be like going global.
I'm looking forward to actually see the real case studies. I'll be requesting Professor Huq that in this program, maybe in future episodes, actually, if we can host and you can see the actual works on ground on these adaptations, because we have been talking, that's very important, but also very important to see on ground what's happening and actually happening or not. Very important. I'll come back to you. But let me go to Miss Mahmuda Akter. I think you were part of two important things, Mahmuda. One is locally led adaptation and another is the Delta. So let us first know from you the locally led adaptation. What's the kind of situation and how you kind of found during your exercise with the Gobeshona conference? Mahmuda.
At the Gobeshona conference, there were like several sessions under the theme locally led adaptation. So I would like to talk about one session which actually I was the focal of that session, and I also facilitate and present in that session, which is a tapestry session, transboundary without Sundarban without transboundary one. So the discussions were focused on how is climate change and related uncertainties affecting the well-being and identity of people living in the Indian and Bangladesh Sundarbans. And another discussion point was what emerging initiatives, and practices are addressing climate change related challenges in the Sundarbans. So climate change experiences were also explored through photo voice, where like social struggles in both Bangladesh and Indian parts were depicted through photographs. So as you know, like Sundarbans area remain extremely vulnerable to climate change and other environmental shocks due to their geophysical location. However, being the hot spot of climate change and due to starting work on adaptation prior to India, Bangladesh has experienced in adaptation and has vast scope of transformative adaptation. Okay. But still, adaptation-based learning is lacking in both Bangladesh and Indian region. In this regard, one of the main key findings what I can share with you from our session is people-to-people communication is necessary, which can be achieved by global solidarity network.
Okay, so that's what you have kind of found in this. In this locally led adaptation and the Delta part you said, but my experience is that the adaptation, scale of adaptation in Bangladesh part of Sundarban is much greater than we find in Indian part of Sundarban. I have little experience in Indian part of Sundarban and have also seen Bangladesh part of Sundarban, but I found in Bangladesh part of Sundarban, the adaptation is actually much greater. Bangladesh actually is kind of a peak of the adaptation. So we all have to learn from Bangladesh when it comes to adaptation. No doubt about that. No qualms on that. Great. Let me go to Jennifer now. Jennifer Khadim, you is a youth program coordinator, and I think youth program is a part of a major thing in this particular Gobeshona conference. Please take us through that. What exactly your experience out there, Jennifer?
What we tried to do is have a pre-conference networking session, and we invited youth from both different parts of Bangladesh and from our different networks that we are connected to. So at the moment, we are trying to get more affiliated with the Yangon constituency of the UNFCCC. And at the same time, we have been, the focal point for the Global Center on Adaptation in terms of the Youth Adaptation Network that has been started last year from September. So what we wanted to do, since we are part of so many different groups, how about we bring people in under one platform? So when we were talking to Dr. Huq about how we can integrate the youth component into the whole conference, so he suggested that how about we introduce the whole conference and what we do and what we want to do with them as a network. We should hold a pre-conference networking session. And actually we are not done because we haven't hosted the post-conference session. It's actually due next week. So next week or the week later. So what we wanted to do is have the youth discuss about their country activities, what they're doing in their own communities.
How many countries, youth from how many countries were there?
We actually got applications. We had an open call for application who wanted to join. We had 160 applications from all over the world. But in the end, we had to be satisfied with 85 participants. And in the youth networking session, we had youth from Bangladesh. The majority part was Bangladesh. We had from India, Pakistan, Afghanistan. Then we had from Fiji, Malawi, Uganda, Ethiopia, and a few from the European countries. And what we wanted to do is have some follow-up events. We introduced the Gobeshona conference. We told them that this is what we are trying to do. And we wanted to share what we are doing and wanted to see how we can find common elements of collaboration.
Just to kind of question coming immediately to the mind, when in Madrid, we saw the Greta Thunberg led the huge rally. I was fortunate to be there and saw that how the younger generation was actually leading the whole show. We are all behind and watched them in awe that how they have been leading. So when you were talking to these young leaders, climate leaders across the world, do you find them angry with the politicians? Do you find them angry with the elders? Or do you find them that, okay, we'll be doing our bit? How they are? What's the mindset you find generally?
In general, what we experienced, I'll just speak from experience, that they really want their voices to be heard. They
want their voices to be heard.
Yeah, they're not really looking for, they're not looking for a fight with the elders. I mean, I'm middle-aged, so I'm not really youth, and I'm advocating for their rights and their voices. So they want them to be heard. They want us to listen to them, that if they think something is right, why can't we see that it's right?
Okay. Okay, great. Professor Huq, we have heard the first round of kind of responses, and I hope that we can have a quick second round as well. But what's your experience? You have been, I'm sure, being part of many of these 90 seminars. You have feedbacks, may not be in physically, but you have got all the feedbacks. How is the situation? Because there is a general thinking that COVID and post-COVID, the world is going to be more difficult to get funds and everything about this climate change. Climate change actually can go a bit of in the back burner. That's the kind of a general feeling around. So what's your take on that? After seeing this Gobeshona conference and the responses of all over, how you feel about it?
That's a very good question, Jayanta. And you're quite right. You know, the situation, particularly economic and financial, is very, very stressful at the moment, and getting funding for anything is going to be difficult. On the other hand, I must say that we had a very, very positive experience. As I already mentioned, the response was overwhelming. The outcome was extremely useful. So what we have decided to do now is this annual conference we've been doing every January. We are not going to revert back to the old way, even after people can travel. We are going to stay virtual and global, and we will build on what we have done. This time around, we started the process and we got so much enthusiasm and interest from all over the world. We are going to build on this, including the youth that Jennifer just mentioned. And during the year, we will keep communicating with everybody, and then next January, bring everybody back together again to measure progress and share experience. And what we are finding is that almost an unintended benefit of the COVID restrictions of everybody now going online and living in a virtual world is that the virtual world actually connects us better across the world. We were talking to people in Canada, in South America, in Japan, in the Pacific. We would never have been able to meet unless we came, everybody 10,000 people in Madrid or Glasgow once a year, once every now and again. But this we can do, we can manage. And we were talking to people around the world. And as I said earlier, there is a common thing here, which is everybody is dealing with the impacts of climate change in their own context. And they're doing something about it. And in many cases, they are very similar. Deltas, for example. Deltas are the same. Mekong Delta, Ganges Delta, the Nile Delta, all the same deltas. So they had a lot of things in common, even though they were in different countries, spoke different languages, had different, circumstances. Nevertheless, there was a common interest for them to do. Urban cities across the world, people living in slums in cities across the world, very common experiences. So we were able to link all of these up, and going forward in future, we can do this. And then,
Absolutely.
So the final point though, on finance, it hardly cost anything. So it cost a lot of time and effort. My colleagues never slept for seven nights.
It's quite clear that they couldn't sleep.
But money-wise, it didn't cost very much. And carbon footprint-wise, it was practically zero. So, to me, this is the ideal way to do international conferences from now on. And we will continue.
Absolutely fascinating. And also, I think from the communication point of view, it's much more horizontal. You can link any point in the world through this kind of conference, online conference, because even if you pay money, it's always not easy for everybody to come at a particular time in a particular place to have a program. So, but this is much more easier. Right now, we are talking, sitting in our own rooms and connected all over. So that's much easier. So yes, COVID has some advantages. We have to accept that. So let's go back to a very quick second round. We have around 20 minutes time with us still. Let's start with again, Sarah. Sarah, as you talked about your overall role and your high-level thing and all that, but general takeaway for you. You are a young. All of you are young climate specialists, should I say. So you are the future of climate negotiation and climate work. So from a conference of such scale, where I was told, Professor Huq was telling me the other day that 4,000, 5,000 people hearing a conference, that's huge. So what's the takeaway for you in such a conference, Sarah?
Attending most of the sessions, what I understood was every region has a different sort of climate problem. Not everyone has the same problem, and they deal with it differently. So, and learning from the local experiences is what is to be done now at the moment, what is to be cherished now. So every problem is different, and every region has a different solution for it. They technically get it from their experience.
Okay. So you feel that different areas have different kind of problems when they're dealing differently. One can actually learn from each other, how they're going about it.
Yes.
Great. I think here I would like to bring Shahrin. Shahrin, I think you are also part of this facilitating networking. And what just been mentioned by Sarah, that one can learn from each other. So what's your experience when you're working on this networking part, Shahrin, that how it goes about?
Thank you. So I think I talked a bit about the networking, how it worked and connected people from different countries. I think the formation of group was pretty random. People with similar ideas connected, but when we meet these incredible groups, they were quite amazing. People from Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand coming together with their own expertise. Within the group, someone is an architect, someone, working with the grassroots, someone is a government officers, and they're all bringing their ideas together and have the full spirit to implement that and, spread that across the regions. But for me, I think the best takeaway message from this global Gobeshona conference was from a session which was called the Untold Tales of Women Climate Champions. I think that was the best session that I attended, and I was fortunate enough to run the session as well. So this the whole concept was that in the field of climate change, we always tag women as victims, as vulnerables, but we never really, celebrate their contributions in climate change adaptation. So this year, through this session, we brought together women climate champions from local level, to Satkhira, to Kurigram, to national, eminent activists, to at the global level. And we had Ms. Saima Wajid, who is the thematic ambassador for the Climate Vulnerable Forum. And the best takeaway from that session was that it doesn't matter where you are from, be it in the rural area, national or global. It only requires that spirit or that determination to, do something for your community. And there are times when women are taking these leadership roles silently in the background, and we don't usually acknowledge or recognize them. So the world needs to recognize the indomitable spirit and the incredible work that women are doing, and we need to bring them forward at the decision-making table. So that
how many of such case studies you encountered in this women's section?
So we had total 6 grassroots women coming from different parts of Bangladesh, and then we had, I think, 2 national eminent climate activists and 2 global. So within that session altogether, we got to hear, I think, 10 to 12 incredible stories of women leadership in climate change adaptation.
Okay, Professor Huq, just a quick coming back to you, because this is a very interesting point being raised. I was just wondering that when this kind of online and virtual conference happens, one point often people talk about that there is a kind of a disconnect, because sometimes people are not all comfortable, and when you are talking about the local adaptation and the people on ground have to talk and all that, so they often feel that kind of a disconnect, that can I do it? Is it possible for me to do it? Is a kind of a different. So what's your experience? How they could adapt to this scenario?
It's a very good question. And in fact, there is a...
No, that's a question as a communicator that comes immediately to my mind.
I know.
How do you communicate?
I know. But again, it was a surprisingly positive experience in the sense that the digital divide now, but I'm speaking specifically about Bangladesh. Bangladesh, everybody is online. The remotest villages, they have mobile phones, they can get access to internet, they can speak. They speak in their own language. You can't make them speak English. They speak in Bangla, and we can arrange translation. But they are there. They have an opportunity to speak. They will speak, and we heard from villagers in the village, on a smartphone, dialing in and talking to us. And I can tell you that in the last year or so that the COVID situation has hit countries like ours in Bangladesh. Bangladesh has adapted to being on a digital world very, very rapidly. Even the remotest people in Bangladesh have adapted to this. And it's amazing how quickly they have adapted.
They don't feel overawed. They don't feel overawed by the situation.
They are completely confident. You want to talk to anybody in the village, Bangladesh, you call them up, they'll talk to you. They know where you are. They know all about, Kolkata, what's happening there. They'll ask you what the weather is like, how much is the hilsa fish there. We are now globalized. People now.
So everything has a different kind of angle to it. This is really, really amazing as a communicator, because people often feel that, okay, when I have to communicate through online, that's a different ball game. But how quickly people adapt. So that's also a lesson that the power of adaptation is so high.
Absolutely.
And if we can actually translate that power in terms of climate change, then it
able to reach out like experts from all over the world. So which kind of another opportunities for us. So in terms of Tapestry project, like since we cannot go directly in the Sundarban due to COVID, so we have started working with the digital diaries method as an alternative plan.
Okay.
Also, we are
No, please continue.
Okay, so also we are aiming to involve children for planning and reimaging the space, like how they want to see the earth, like how they want to react with the climate change and uncertainty. So we want to like draw all of these things. Yeah.
Okay. You talked about Sundarbans and it came up the discussion a number of times. You talked about Indian Sundarban, Bangladesh Sundarban. In Indian Sundarban, which part of the Indian Sundarban your particular project is ongoing, and what kind of adaptations you are looking at?
Well, in Indian part of Sundarban, we are actually focusing on 3 areas. So which is Gosaba.
I'll be going tomorrow there. Okay.
Very good. Okay, good. And Kultoli, and another one is Sagar.
Sagar.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's 3 parts of Sundarban. Sagar is actually the western part of Sundarban. Goshaba is somewhere around the center, and the other one is in the other part, much closer to Bangladesh Sundarban actually. So that's very interesting. And what kind of adaptation project you are working out there?
Actually, we are trying to see what kind of adaptation practices they are doing there.
Okay.
So mainly, we are focusing on Caritas Indian initiatives.
Okay. So Caritas India has been working in that area for quite some time. I know Pallab and others have been working.
He is actually working on that. In Bangladesh part, we are actually focusing on hydro aquaponic agriculture, but in Indian part, they are actually looking something else.
Okay, fine. We'll be definitely talking about it later again. Yeah. Let's go back to Tasfia. Tasfia, you mentioned about the NBS, but another part I think we were talking before about the climate services. So would you just talk a bit on that, climate services, Tasfia?
Yes, yes, I can talk about that very briefly. It's that in our conference or at our ICCCAD, we always talk about something like called capacity building. So here, climate services, what we are trying to do is that we are trying to build the capacity of our stakeholders on these climate services. Climate service is a very technical term, but if I break it down, it means that it's the use of climate information, like the production and the uses of climate information, and how you generate, how you translate, how you transfer, and how you use it. It's basically the term climate service. What we are doing here is that in our conference, we have also like 3-4 sessions on climate services, if I'm not wrong. I have been leading like 3-4, and I know that many of my colleagues are also leading some sessions on climate services. There actually, we are trying to pitch an idea on National Academy for Climate Services. And Bangladesh is one of a kind that established the example of Bangladesh Academy for Climate Services. And through our model, what we are doing is we're trying to design a course to capacitate people to design a short course. And in this short course, we also follow a very interactive modality to deliver the lecture. It's not like one-on-one teacher-student lecture. It's that it has 4 sources of principle. What we are doing is that we do inquiry-based learning, where participants ask questions first, and then the course has been designed. So it's very, very interactive in that way. And then we do two-way learning.
It's an academic course. It's an academic course.
But we actually reach out to the selected participants first to know about their needs and their
do they get a degree or diploma out of there?
But we provide them a certificate when they complete the course. And the course has been designed by ICCCAD, International Research Institute for Climate and Society, Columbia University, CIMIT, Bangladesh, and then Bangladesh Meteorological Department. So these 4 founding partners run this course, and we follow inquiry-based learning, two-way learning, field visits to design all these.
How many are so far being kind of part of the course as of now?
Already delivered 2 short courses, one in 2018, one in 2019, and 40 participants have participated in this course. But also other than this, we have like around 200 people are in our climate services network who also comes to different dialogues.
This is an online course. This is an online course.
Yeah, actually, so far we have delivered this like in person. But from this year, from 2021, we are aiming to go online. So we are in the process of doing that.
Sure. Sure. Great. I think absolutely great. I think that's another very, very good initiative, because I think climate learning, teaching is one area being, I think, not very explored the way it should have been. Great. We'll be definitely talking again and again. But let me go to Jennifer now. Jennifer, your youth and other issues being talked about. Anything else you feel that needs to be talked about as per your experience in this global conference, Gobeshona conference?
I think for youth, it's really necessary for them to have the knowledge of climate change first, and then go either for an activism as their focus of work, or maybe go for research. We are actually at the moment teaching a group of local students under a project with WaterAid Bangladesh. And most of the students, out of 120 students, I think around 50 to 60 students were part of Gobeshona conference, and they attended a lot of sessions. They're still learning. So this is the point that I want to highlight, is that before you want to go and do something, you have to know the topic, and you really need to know the problem, the local problem, and then you can take part in the locally led adaptation center.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's absolutely correct. So let me come back to finally to Professor Huq again. Professor Huq, this is an enormous exercise. I understand this is an enormous exercise, 7 days, 24 hours around the clock, all over the world. How you feel that's output, so enormous output that you have at your resources now, you would like to use it in the wider and bigger picture of climate negotiation, particularly in context to adaptation?
Very good question. So I'll give you 2 tracks of what we plan to do. The first one is just simply communicate what we have done. Okay. So we have 90 sessions recorded, and we will be disseminating these recordings. And our experience in the past of now, this virtual world where we have been doing webinars and so on for some months now, is that the recording actually attracts quite a large audience that watches the recording in their own time, who are interested.
Exactly.
So the live audience is quite often smaller than the actual
same experience with all of us.
Exactly. So that is a resource in its own right. 90 sessions we will have recordings of, we will publicize them, people can come and visit and watch them. Each one will have a short report as well. So every session will have a report that people can look at, and we'll share them with you. So if you want to do, write something on it, please, we welcome you to do that. You can pick whatever you think would be of interest for writing on. And then the second question you said, how do we take messages into the global arena? So I mentioned the Climate Adaptation Summit already. At the summit, locally led adaptation, they gave me very kindly, they gave me 3 minutes to talk about the Gobeshona conference. So I was given an opportunity at this high level summit to talk about Gobeshona. And then in the closing session of Gobeshona, we also had the Deputy Secretary of UNFCCC, Oves Sarmad, and we had Anne-Marie Trevelyan, who is the climate champion of COP26, the adaptation resilience champion of COP26. And we asked them, how can we take our message from Gobeshona, which is a very grassroots, locally led adaptation message, to the high level of the COP26 discussions? And both of them promised that they themselves will become our ambassadors and they will take the messages there. And that those of us who will have the opportunity to go to the COP, and several of my colleagues here have been actually to the last COP. They were in Madrid with me. So I hope my young colleagues will also be able to go to Glasgow. Those of us who have the good fortune to be in Glasgow, we can then network there. We can do side events. We can do events to share the messages from Gobeshona with other people who are there who have similar interests. As you know, at the COP brings together many, many different people of different interests, and opportunities for side events and meetings and networking is enormous. Not just following negotiations, but networking, particularly for young colleagues like mine here. So that is how we aim to proceed.
And always, though we understand that virtual has its own advantages, but we can't forget that actual has its own advantages.
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
Perhaps we need a good, even the post-COVID days, we need a good kind of marriage and mix between the actual and virtual. Yes. We might have too many actuals before. We are now right now having too many virtuals.
Correct.
Somewhere in the middle, I think the actual happens. Actual should stay, because otherwise, my understanding in virtual is that we have been having so many of these virtuals, and then they tend to stay less. They tend to float away a bit. So I think we have to find out that model, that how we can maximize the impact of virtual and actual together. But before I conclude today, a final question to you, that this whole issue of adaptation and mitigation being long discussed about. Now, do you feel that discussion is over? Now adaptation is at the prime? It's the win. It's now clear win for adaptation. What's your take on that?
I think, yes. I mean, that battle has been won. You know, we fought for adaptation for many years. It was a losing battle. People didn't want to listen to us. Now they do. And I will say, you know, several factors have contributed to that. Firstly, even the rich countries are being affected by climate change. Yes. So they now have to adapt also. It's not just us in the poor countries. And secondly, climate change is becoming visible everywhere. Wherever you look, there's climate change happening. So you cannot deny it. And so it has become important, and the summit allowed that to take place, bring everybody together and agree. Now it's about doing things about it. That really is the challenge. In terms of doing things, we are still far behind. We are not doing enough. We're not doing it fast enough. We need to gather the pace, do it together. And that's why conferences like Gobeshona are good, in that we want to bring together people who are doing it from different parts of the world and join forces and link us up. That our hypothesis is that each of us are doing what we can in our own, but if we connect with people in other parts of the world and other countries, then we will also benefit. They will also benefit.
Absolutely.
It's a win-win for all of us to share knowledge and learn from each other. That's our theory going forward, and we believe that that is the way forward.
Absolutely, and I conclude with this, that I think that is this whole idea about decentralizing the responsibility. This one union government will do everything is not done now. Correct. So I hope, I really hope that Gobeshona Global Conference will become maybe Welcome to South Asian Environment Dialogue. It's a program, as you all know, which discuss about the environment and climate change issues across
is the smartest and more ingenious creature living on planet Earth, and yet it's the only one capable of destroying its own planet.
If we don't adapt, the consequences will be disastrous.
We are also the ones that are going to face this crisis, for the rest of our lives probably.
This is the battle of our lifetime.
Significantly more money and funding is needed.
And use this summit as a turning point to create a more prosperous, greener.
So the task ahead is vast. We will need to shift the immense power of the market away from destruction and towards sustainability.
Tackle this great challenge of climate change, we need all hands on deck.
The leaders today have the power to shape a better future for our planet.
我们生活在同一个地球村。
Il en va de notre responsabilité à tous et de notre responsabilité à chacun.
2021 is the year that we fight back.
Certainly collaboration is a key part of this.
President Biden has made fighting climate change a top priority of his administration.
Many world leaders and with such powerful commitment, nothing will be very happy with that.
We need to start building a better future now.
Is the smartest and more ingenious creature living on planet Earth, and yet it's the only one capable of destroying its own planet.
If we don't adapt, the consequences will be disastrous.
We are also the ones that are going to face this crisis, for the rest of our lives probably.
This is the battle of our lifetime.
Significantly more money and funding is needed.
And use this summit as a turning point to create a more prosperous, greener and fairer world.
So the task ahead is vast. We will need to shift the immense power of the market away from destruction and towards sustainability.
Tackle this great challenge of climate change, we need all hands on deck.
The leaders today have the power to shape a better future for our planet.
我们生活在同一个地球村。
Il en va de notre responsabilité à tous et de notre responsabilité à chacun.
2021 is the year that we fight back.
Certainly collaboration is a key part of this.
President Biden has made fighting climate change a top priority of his administration.
Many world leaders and with such powerful commitment, I can be very happy with that.
We need to start building a better future now.
Human being is the smartest and more ingenious creature living on planet Earth, and yet it's the only one capable of destroying its own planet.
We are also the ones that are going to face this crisis, for the rest of our lives probably.
This is the battle of our lifetime.
Significantly more money and funding is needed.
And use the summit as a turning point to create a more prosperous, greener and fairer world.
So the task ahead is vast. We will need to shift the immense power of the market away from destruction and towards sustainability.
Tackle this great challenge of climate change, we need all hands on deck.
The leaders today have the power to shape a better future for our planet.
我们生活在同一个地球村。
Il en va de notre responsabilité à tous et de notre responsabilité à chacun.
2021 will be the year that we fight back.
Certainly collaboration is a key part of this.
President Biden has made fighting climate change a top priority of his administration.
Many world leaders and such powerful commitment. I can only be very happy with it.
We need to start building a better future now.
Is the smartest and more ingenious creature living on planet Earth, and yet it's the only one capable of destroying its own planet.
If we don't adapt, the consequences will be disaster.
Voices of young people.
We are also the ones that are going to face this crisis, for the rest of our lives probably.
This is the battle of our lifetime.
Significantly more money and funding is needed.
And use the summit as a turning point to create a more prosperous, greener and fairer world.
So the task ahead is vast. We will need to shift the immense power of the market away from destruction and towards sustainability.
Tackle this great challenge of climate change, we need all hands on deck.
The leaders today have the power to shape a better future for our planet.
我们生活在同一个地球村。
Il en va de notre responsabilité à tous et de notre responsabilité à chacun.
2021 will be the year that we fight back.
Certainly collaboration is a key part of this.
President Biden has made fighting climate change a top priority of his administration.
Many world leaders with such powerful commitment. I can only be very happy with it.
We need to start building a better future now.
Is the smartest and more ingenious creature living on planet Earth, and yet it's the only one capable of destroying its own planet.
If we don't adapt, the consequences will be disaster.
We need the voices of young people.
We are also the ones that are going to face this crisis, for the rest of our lives probably.
This is the battle of our lifetime.
Significantly more money and funding is needed.
And use the summit as a turning point to create a more prosperous, greener and fairer world.
So the task ahead is vast. We will need to shift the immense power of the market away from destruction and towards sustainability.
Tackle this great challenge of climate change, we need all hands on deck.
The leaders today have the power to shape a better future for our planet.
我们生活在同一个地球村。
Il en va de notre responsabilité à tous et de notre responsabilité à chacun.
2021 is the year we fight back.
Certainly collaboration is a key part of this.
President Biden has made fighting climate change a top priority of his administration.
Many world leaders and with such powerful commitment, I can only be very happy.
We need to start building a better future now.
That are going to face this crisis for the rest of our lives, probably.
This is the battle of our lifetime.
Significantly more money and funding is needed.
And use this summit as a turning point to create a more prosperous, greener and fairer world.
So the task ahead is vast. We will need to shift the immense power of the market away from destruction and towards sustainability.
Tackle this great challenge of climate change, we need all hands on deck.
The leaders today have the power to shape a better future for our planet.
我们生活在同一个地球村。
Il en va de notre responsabilité à tous et de notre responsabilité à chacun.
2021